Welcome to episode 15 of the COO's Corner podcast, the podcast exploring success factors in the world of business operations, leadership, and personal growth. And my name is Tamar Nelson, your host, and a specialist in the area of operational resilience. And today we are exploring the topic, curiosity and leadership in the digital economy, a match made in heaven. Have you both seriously big goals and brand new teams that you want to gel together? Is your team in the rut of mediocrity? Need to develop or inculturate a team you just inherited post-reorganization? Are you a newly promoted and now leadership entails a whole new terrain of expectation, impact, or even politics? At a critical career inflection point in which a promotion seems close, but yet out of reach and vague in terms of feedback. Or maybe you're a female talent ready yet challenged to own your seat at the table. There are things that curiosity can achieve or unleash within us. And our guest today is the person poised to do that. She is none other than Dr. Alison Horstmeyer. Dr. Horstmeyer is a globally recognized executive consultant and coach, a humanistic researcher. Alison has a unique distinction of being the inaugural research fellow appointed to the Innovative Education Center, the #1 communications university in the US. USC Annenberg Center for Third Space Thinking. Alison is considered one of the pioneering practitioners in workplace curiosity. You can find her work in various peer-reviewed journals and business publications, including Forbes, Chief Learning Officer, the CEO World magazine, and in the Harvard Business Review Press, the Journal of Organizational Change Management, the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, among others. She regularly works with clients faced with multifaceted leadership, healthy team dynamics, and continuous innovation. Examples of organizations she has worked with include Hulu, Google, Marvel Technology, Vanguard, and Stanford Healthcare. Just wow. And this is just a, very humble synopsis, let me tell you. Dr. Allison is deep. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Allison.
Oh, thank you so much. Great to be here with you. I'm really excited to talk with you today. I love the global reach that you have. It's always great to connect with pioneering spirits in other parts of the world. So thank you.
Yes, it's our pleasure. From Jamaica to Los Angeles.
Exactly. I love it.
And I want to thank my fellow podcaster and friend, somebody who I look up to, Fred Diamond, for this introduction, which came out of me sharing one of my favorite Einstein quotes on LinkedIn, which states that the important thing is not to stop questioning, never to lose holy curiosity. And it generated so much dialogue. And out of that came the introduction to Dr. Horstmeyer. I didn't even know we had such an awesome individual doing PhD work in this area. But before we dive in, Dr. Allison, what led you down this path of diving into curiosity at the PhD level?
I would say Career 1.0 was building businesses at the intersection of tech and media. And I did a lot of work with international sales teams and engineering teams, cross-functional teams. And I noticed there was a lot of anxiety and complacency. I think it's probably it certainly ramped up right during COVID. And as we returned to the office and just in our personal lives, just navigating so much change continuously. So I wanted to kind of be in the arena of integrative health sciences and do it from a humanistic angle. And I started looking at anxiety really kind of the mind-body connection and behavioral science and social science around that. And that led me in a very nonlinear way, as research does, to curiosity, because I had naively hypothesized, could you be anxious and curious at the same time? And I say it was naive because the answer is yes. But, I wanted to see if that was true, or how it was integrated. And, there's certainly eminent curiosity researchers that have come before me and continue to do phenomenal research. And they really influenced and opened up my mind into understanding just how dynamic and complex curiosity is. And that in terms of workplace, it only has just started to really be a topic of empirical research, maybe in the last, 20, 15 years, where we're really recognizing that curiosity in the workplace is this meta skill, and it's a doorway to a number of other skills that we need, not just connected to innovation and creativity. I think there's an intuitive path we tend to go to when we think about curiosity and creativity, but also in terms of our interpersonal dynamics and also our own self-awareness. And that was the part that really fascinated me, in terms of how could we transcend our own narratives? How could we manage our anxiety that is indelibly tied to curiosity, but also how can we use our curiosity in a way that really supports productive interpersonal relationships and collaboration and productivity. And so that's where I tend to focus.
Wow. And that's deep because what you just mentioned covers a wide gamut of areas on the individual, team level, and the organizational level. So we know that's no easy feat. And you mentioned a number of things, in just that introduction that we will get back to. And I have some questions on.
Okay.
But before we go into that, I think it's important for us to start off the discussion with what is curiosity? Is it a process? Is it a faculty that we all possess and don't access?
It is innate in all of us. From the positive psychology literature, it is one of our core strengths. And it's one of the strengths that is really tied to well-being. And from other lenses, curiosity has been viewed very much as a trait, something that we have in each one of us, and it does take intentionality and being deliberate in how you cultivate that. My research focused more on state curiosity, because the more states of curiosity, the more likely you're going to have a more defined trait of curiosity. And then as the literature has evolved, we're actually seeing that maybe they're psychologically equivalent, and we don't really have to separate them. I do believe that there's a process to curiosity, what I saw in my research, and and we haven't really defined it. Is it metacognition? Is it an emotional, motivational, psychological state? I kind of am more in that camp, where, because I have that humanistic lens, that it is both motivational, it's cognitive, and it's emotional, given because it is multifaceted. There are dimensions to curiosity about not knowing, which can trigger anxiety or some tension. There's an aspect of curiosity that has to do with exploring, like you're actively seeking information or experience or something in the form of new data, either to close your knowledge gap, to get back to certainty, or that because you love pioneering and you want to kind of swim in that sea of possibilities. There's different ways you go about your exploration, and there's a level of openness. So you have to be, there's a level of being open not only to your discoveries in your exploration, but also, the feedback that you're receiving from those. And then the dimension that's connected really more prominently to that anxiety element that I was trying to unpack, which really has been documented by Dr. Todd Kashdan as stress tolerance. So it is the ways in which we manage the doubt, uncertainty, or confusion throughout our exploration. And it's also a double loop learning in the way that the only way you are going to get new reference points to expand your thought action repertoire, so your ability to manage that risk or that doubt or confusion that comes up with exploring new and unfamiliar, is by going into the new and unfamiliar. Like you have to have those experiences or find that information, because then the next time you're going to probably feel more confident in handling something that's ambiguous.
Wow.
So in my work with clients and execs and teams, we work on how can we normalize experimentation. And it really comes down to what's the team purpose? What are the team's norms, like the rules of engagement that we've all agreed to, fundamentally that supports a container of psychological safety. And that's why it's so wonderful to see really the momentum behind psychological safety that Timothy Clark and Amy Edmondson have really brought forward through so much of their research.
Lovely.
And that, companies across the world are trying to figure out what that looks like and how to support it. And I can tell you that, it definitely matters what we're modeling, what kind of values we have, what kind of behaviors we are tolerating, because norms can be explicitly or implicitly stated or adopted. And so if you're letting go of the ones that you haven't explicitly all agreed to and that are some way compromising psych safety, you're not going to get curiosity. So I'll pause there because I said a lot.
Wow, we could listen to you all day. I mean, that was so rich, Dr. Allison. And when I thought of curiosity, or when you think of curiosity, you just think, okay, well, it's one thing, but what we are hearing, it's not, it's a complex, it's a compound. It has many different facets. It goes deep and wide based on what you just said. And one of the quote that I love, another quote on curiosity, is by Bryant H. McGill, which says, curiosity is one of the greatest secrets to happiness. And when I'm in my curious zone, I'm wildly calm and very creative. However, we have heard that, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, that curiosity kills the cat. And what I'm hearing from you too is that there is a positive and a negative side to the whole matter of curiosity. Can it be dangerous?
Yeah, you can certainly overuse any meta skill. And Dr. Todd Kashdan has also done work on the dark side of curiosity, which may lead to addiction and other things. In terms of the workplace, I believe why there's some resistance to really fostering curiosity is because people are worried that people are just going to go explore with no end in sight or with no specific objective or purpose to that exploration. And I would say, yes, that's fair. And there are ways to provide guardrails for the exploration. I love the concept of MVP, minimum viable product, because it speaks to that guardrail. Like, let's explore, experiment, and iterate to a certain end, which can foster innovation, right? Innovation is really something novel and useful. The other type of exploration where you can just explore with really for the sake of exploring like your creativity is we do have to support, having an opportunity for folks to have some types of creative outlet. And we saw this or early on, Pixar talked about how they encouraged their employees to take completely different courses, not related to their role, because they saw the benefits of that ability to bring disparate thinkings to go really divergent before coming convergent. And you do need different inputs to stretch you. Novartis is very public about their journey about transforming their culture to curiosity, and they really encourage their employees to have a minimum of 100 learning hours, and they're not prescriptive that those learning hours have to be connected to that person's specific role, because they understand and have seen the benefits of having people go outside of their familiar areas and can see and be able to access different parts of themselves, and then bringing that forward. So I guess fundamentally, it's really what kind of guardrails you put around it is going to indicate what kind of outcome you're going to get. So, when we think about it in the corporate sense, there's opportunities to do that in a way that still supports curiosity. And the research shows that if we do that, we actually, have a higher chance of less errors in the long run. We are better equipped to problem solve in the long run. And so there is a benefit to providing that kind of environment, because ultimately it does provide, quote, efficiencies, and in the ways that we want to see today. So that's how I think we can support it.
Awesome. So I hear you speak about guardrails, and I know a lot of companies too, they don't want to have a bad company image and don't want to make blunders or mistakes. They may be costly, but I like how you frame it, that you can package it. But does curiosity stop at any point? Does it really have any limitations?
Does it have, I think you put the limitations on it yourself, or your environment does, or your self-concept, how you view yourself. Certain values that you have may dampen curiosity. So for example, I've had clients who are very, very high with the value of security. And that means for them, they tend to get ramped up on the anxiety front because things are feeling like that value is threatened, whether it's being in front of the C-suite presenting. It could be something like that, where that anxiety ramps up because they're feeling like that value is threatened. They also have other lovely values. I had a client who also had empathy as his core value. And so then we have to talk about, like, how can we lean into some of your other values that you have that can help buffer you and to actually encourage you to try something new and to try a different way of viewing what your presentation is. It's really a way to be educating, or to have a platform to educate and help people understand what's happening, and to foster transparency, and that you're really in service of the collective. So, there's tools like reframing that can really help. And I think also we are not great from a corporate standpoint, always supporting someone who challenges the status quo, or who is, rocking the boat, because that is not something that's always welcomed.
No.
And so that will actually cause people to disengage, be de-energized, and just stay in their lane and do what's needed, and will not stretch themselves. We actually want people stretching, because then they get into flow states, which really helps with productivity and other things.
Right. So, you mentioned stretching and increasing efficiency and curiosity. What else can curiosity ignite in people that want to up-level themselves and their teams, especially in these times that we operate?
Well, I think curiosity gives us an opportunity. It's a doorway to empathy. So we're all having really hard times now, and we don't know everybody's story or what people are really coming to work with. And so I think it provides us an opportunity to really try to connect and stand in that person's shoes and seek their perspective. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It certainly won't be helpful to understand where they're coming from, so you can help bring them along to what is needed in terms of their role or for what we're trying to achieve from a goal standpoint. It provides us a conduit to ourselves. Like, let's get curious. Like, why am I showing up the way I am? Like, I always call curiosity is really a potent pause. Like, if we can slow down, reflect, and have wonder about ourselves and why we're showing up in certain ways and what we want to do about it, and be more intentional, then that's an opportunity for us to develop and have and align our intention with the impact that we want to make. So I think it's something that can happen in increments. I'm not asking you to, leave your job, explore the world. I'm saying, what's one small thing that you can try? What's a mantra that you want to write? So you read that every time before you go into a meeting, and to see how you engage with somebody differently, knowing that was your touchstone going in. Is it that you want to journal in the morning before you get online? It's just, what do you want to try that intuitively you probably know you should, or that you need to do? I should remove the word should. Nobody should do anything. At the same time, explore, experiment, let go of perfection. Perfection is so limiting. We don't want to be perfect. We want to be works in progress continuously, right?
Absolutely.
So to feed our growth.
I love those tips you just shared, particularly, the mantra. And this is something simple. It doesn't cost money. You don't need a whole ton of money in the bank to get curious based on what you're saying here, right? It's as simple as writing down a few words and, repeating them to yourselves to make a difference in how you show up as a leader every day. I love that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And,
of course, my pleasure.
So in the episode before,
yeah,
I spoke with Gina Riley about persons in career transitions, and one of the things that you mentioned is that you can actually state curiosity as a strength, right? So is there any, you also spoke about meta skills. Is there any correlation or link with other human aspects with curiosity and integrity, for example? What are some of the correlations based on your research with curiosity and other human aspects?
So we see in the research, those that tend to exhibit curiosity are, and we see, and if it's in a team setting for environment, there's higher levels of trust, higher levels of collaboration. In my research, I saw a ability to put openness into action that could support agility from an emotional, mental, and social standpoint. And I feel that what I'm saying is when we are able to activate those facets of curiosity, we're able to take in the cues around us that would signal to us that we need to pivot or adjust, whether that's in how I'm interacting with somebody, or I've received data that indicates that we need to take a different turn in the market. And fundamentally, what I'm saying is, can it provide us an opportunity to be more mindful about our cognitive biases, whether that's confirmation bias or framing bias or sunk cost fallacy bias. So I think because those can get in the way of curiosity, and you know, we have over 100 it can be spots for us. So when we're able to remain open to the possibilities, that also can help us with management.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so, the next question I have for you, Dr. Horstmeyer, I know you have worked in the tech space and you have built generation businesses from the ground floor, from multi-billion entities. Now you partner and work with executives across diverse set of industries and sectors with technology as a focus area. Now we're in the digital economy and we're hearing a lot about AI and blockchain. Where does curiosity fit into this mix? And what's next?
It's a great question. I think, I feel like we're constantly in a digital revolution. There's the speed of transformation that is really catalyzed by continuous advances in technology. Really keep it hard to keep up with those advancements and what that means and how that can really be of benefit to us. And I was just actually working with senior execs at a life science company, and they're really wanting their next C-suite, or those that are ready to enter the C-suite, to have that really future forward, future leaning disposition, which requires an ability to explore those different technologies and integrate it in a way that really aligns with both this business strategy, the strategy of the business, and also their talent strategy. So we really have to use technology as a mechanism that's not just about how does it benefit us from a business standpoint, but also from a talent standpoint. Certainly now that we're in hybrid environments, there's aspects of technology that can enable us to have potentially higher levels of productivity. But fundamentally, I think we need our curiosity to evaluate the landscape of technologies in a really 360-degree way and be thorough in our due diligence about which technologies we're bringing to companies, how they're created, because there is inherent bias, or there is a bias in AI, in machine learning, and it's fundamentally about that's coded and who's coding it.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's intentional, but we clearly need a better way of making sure that everyone's represented in those technologies. And I think that's going to take quite a bit of curiosity and work on that horizon.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned this earlier, with all of this rapid transformations that is happening, and, us being exploring, experimenting, and iterating based on what you mentioned. One can get really anxious, and you have mentioned the link. Well, how can we, how might we curtail that so that we get the positive aspects, the happiness, the creativity, the innovation aspect of it, and not get too much on the anxious side, because we know that's something, especially in this dispensation, we get caught up with. We have enough things around us to trigger that. How can we better manage that when we're getting curious?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a personal choice about how to manage that. For me, taking breaks is really important. I think our hybrid work environment, we're all now working with no boundaries really, and all the time. And so breaks are really important. Exercise is really important. Having some kind of outlet, maybe you want to go meditate, maybe you want to get outside. And I think the other thing is, like, how can you get methodical about it in a way that doesn't seem overwhelming? Because I know when we're trying to go for big changes, especially if we're driving change at a company, it can get really overwhelming, because we're holding a North Star of like all this thing we're trying to get to, and how are we possibly going to get there. But if we can just break it down into key phases and focus on the phase that we're in, staying present with the phase that we're in, and navigating that, and just making sure it's connecting to how we're laddering to that vision, that can certainly be a way to make it more manageable. Certainly having those around you that can support you and collaborate. If you can have mentors and sponsors that can be sounding boards for you, it does come down to also, who are you surrounding yourself by? If you're surrounding yourself with people who are triggers for you,
Yes.
they may not be the right people to be around. And I'm not, you can't escape them all, because they're inevitably going to be those with who you work with. And so it's also making sure you are able to offset those with people who energize you and who can be sounding boards for you. And I think also what I'm seeing too that amps up the anxiety in our very Zoomified world is that we're running from meeting to meeting to meeting. And then people are like, wow, I didn't show up well in that meeting, or I'm not prepared, or wow, I had no idea that this is the way it was going to go. And time again, when I'm coaching and we're very deliberate about creating the space for preparation, then people are inevitably more confident in showing up in their meeting, because they're like, I'm prepared, I got this, I did my homework, I'll be able to pivot wherever this goes. And so if you're feeling that way, my invitation is to you is like, start carving out the space for that intentional preparation. It will serve you so well.
Wow. Very, very useful tips. Thank you so much for sharing those gems. Lovely. And I know we'll be implementing a lot of these immediately. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's a beautiful thing about curiosity. And, one of the things that if we want to grow something, my background is engineering and, industrial and systems. And one of the things we learn is that, you can't improve what you're not measuring, or you can't manage what you're not measuring. And so especially when you're looking to build resilience in our operations, and we want to grow curiosity. Should curiosity be our number one KPI? And how do we really measure curiosity?
Yeah, that's great. So there's certainly ways to measure curiosity, just how in terms of what's been used in the research, there are scales and inventories that you can use to measure those dimensions of curiosity. I think that would be a wonderful project for a team to decide together what an output of curiosity looks like. Does it look like we have taken the time to hear everybody's voice at the table, and then somehow whoever's leading that project has synthesized and then indicated the direction that we can go? Is it something connected to how we're evaluating the data, those measurements? Are we using the same playbook from a previous project to this project? Is that really what we should be doing? So, there's a way to use your curiosity and make sure that you're measuring the right things for that particular project, because it's really easy to rely on past history or previous experience and bring that in. And we want your domain expertise. I think we also want an opportunity to have a clean slate and really look at what's in front of us. And the reason I say that is there was research done by Spencer Stewart of 800 CEOs. And it was the experienced CEOs were really great when it was needed to be in kind of a very cost-cutting operational efficiency mode. It was the rookie CEOs that outperformed the experienced CEOs when navigating and managing complexity and ambiguity. And one of the reasons is because rookie CEOs don't have a playbook. So they were exploring, doing their due diligence, being very focused on what the playbook was for that specific company or that specific market. And they were 2 times successful when they were able to throw away that playbook and start with a fresh playbook in their next CEO role. And so, I don't know if we want metrics really that say, okay, you demonstrated curiosity and it looked like this, or we really want to use our curiosity to make sure we're measuring the right things.
Okay, gotcha. Very, very insightful. And, one of the things that came up, in terms of, who can use this, I remember in the post, one of the comments from Mary McDonnell Hockley, she said that curiosity is undoubtedly key to unlocking potential and future success. So the principles we have discussed so far, is it the same for service or product organization across industries? I know you have worked in healthcare, in the tech field and other areas, I think education as well. Does it change? Do we have to tweak things in how we deal with curiosity, or is it project specific, industry specific? What has been your experience?
For me, we all of those industries fundamentally have a human element. There are humans behind making those services and products and organizations work. And since we are all fundamentally human and curiosity is part of us, I think the question is how, it's not if we should be curious in certain ways in those industry, but how can we bring our curiosity forward in a way that advances the work that we're really trying to do. And there are the same principles that really hold across those industries, and similar to what I've just spoken about. So some of those industries are slow to change. They're really holding on to the status because it provides a false sense of security. And I say it's false sense of security because the risk is that they're not taking risks. And so they're going to get left behind even more, or, underperform as the keeps changing. And what I'm saying is, when we have such a high human element to any industry, that we can help each other, ourselves, to bring our curiosity forward in a way that, again, aligns, that really helps to align our intention with our impact. And I think, I assume positive of us do. And that also can be really valuable in terms of opening ourselves up to each other and to new perspectives and diverse perspectives that perhaps we have not considered before.
Wow. So would you say, Dr. Horstmeyer, that from where you sit, that would be the number one mistake made today within an organization as it relates to curiosity, holding back or not willing to take risk? Or is there another that you would say is the number one mistake that you see over the last 2 years or so?
I thoroughly support informed risk taking, and I know there are certain categories of failures. I come from this school that, we want to be thoughtful in terms of the kinds of risks that we take, which also goes back to the MVP model and going incrementally. I think that provides an informed risk-taking path. And it also ties to what I said in the very beginning, that if we don't go and get new reference points, then we're not really going to know what to do.
Yeah.
So I think, paralysis by analysis and inaction are probably the two most toxic things you could do right now.
Yes.
Given what's going on.
My other guest, 2 episodes before this, he mentioned, go and ask a baker in Bulgaria what he is doing. Just talk to him about what his work and what he's doing, and you might get insights into how you can improve your work in your industry, in your operations, that we can get inspiration from the most unusual places.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely, 100%.
Yes. So, is in terms of, we're kind of wrapping up our discussion now. Is there any resources that are available that can help COOs or C-suite in terms of their journey to help their organizations to build curiosity?
There's a number of, resources around psych safety and curiosity. And I think for the C-suite, it comes down to looking at, companies that are really embracing curiosity and how are they doing it, and looking outside of your industry. So even, we know in tech, for example, Google has a 20% rule where an employee can spend 20% on a project that's really kind of dear to them. That's not specific to their role. Novartis has done wonderful things. Microsoft has really embedded a growth mindset into their culture. And
is there a website
and look outside of.
Oh, sorry. Is there a website that persons can go to and just see a list of companies that are being curious? Or
you can see on my website, I have articles and podcasts of folks that have done this journey. But I do want to say one thing. When it comes to the C-suite, it really matters what you're modeling. Because as we know, things cascade down, and Spencer Harrison, who's a wonderful curiosity and creativity research out of INSEAD, he did studies with very senior leaders at organizations, and he could actually, through his research, see a correlation between the ways in which the leader was curious and the direct impact it had on organizational strategy on that person's team, and the ambidexterity of a company, meaning a company was able to both capitalize and monetize their resources for today, as well as they were already at the fringes getting ready to be able to capitalize on those changes in the future. And so, my message to your COO audience is like, it really matters what you're modeling.
That's such a profound statement. I mean, and it really, if you think about it, it's something that can influence us so deeply. So we have to really ask ourselves that question and to ensure that we are modeling the right people, because whatever we are doing radiates throughout the organization, and we want to have the right influences that encourage the kind of behaviors and actions that we want to see within our teams. So is there any myth about curiosity that you want to debunk, Dr. Horstmeyer?
It didn't kill the cat. Yeah, it didn't kill the cat.
Love it.
There's other things killing that cat.
That's a good one. I'm going to ask you to step into my shoes for a bit. Is there any question that you wanted me to ask today that I haven't asked you?
Oh, I'm satisfied if you are. I feel like we covered a lot of territory. I really appreciate the forum to share my thinking and my perspective, and I really appreciate your questions. So thank you.
So I will wrap up with one then, that every guest I ask this question, that no one escapes it. I really believe that there is great power in the questions that you ask. I guess that's the curiosity in me. In your career, what's one question that you frequently use when you're working with teams to get the best outcomes?
What needs to be true?
Oh, wow.
Right? What needs to be true to get to X? Try that. Wow.
What has been your that's so deep. What is some of the responses that you get? That seems to tell me, it seems to trigger the curiosity in persons, right?
Well, it depends what we're talking about, but if they're trying to get to a new way of behaving with each other, or they're working towards a very ambitious goal, then it's stepping out of the frame of the constraints temporarily and saying, or the perceived constraints, or the assumptions and preconceived notions, and saying what needs to be true to make this happen.
I love that. Wow. I think telling this is always the best part. I get such great responses from our guests, in addition to the great wisdom that is shared. It was such a pleasure talking to you, Dr. Horstmeyer, and you have shared so much of your wisdom with us today. It was really energizing, and I'm sure our listeners got great value from this discussion. So thank you again for coming.
Great. Of course, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And to you, our listeners, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this and got some great insights. Share in the comments what you liked from this episode. And, you can learn more about Dr. Allison Horstmeyer's work and access her published articles, podcast interviews, etc. Really cool website at www.drallisonh.com. And I'll put the link in the resource section, so you can just click on it and you get straight to her. And I really hope that everyone will be challenging the status quo with this information, and I really want to hear about it. You can reach out to me at tamar@tamarnelson.com or on LinkedIn at tamar-nelson. If you'd like to be a guest, or if you want to share any feedback or suggestions you may have, just send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And please free to share this with persons who you think would be benefited by this conversation. And please subscribe so you can hear more of what is to come on the COO's Corner. You can also leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate that. So please join us again for another information-packed episode. Until next time, Dr. Allison would say, explore, experiment, evolve, and as we say in Jamaica, walk good. Thank you.